So that's a bit of what Nordoff Robbins Music Therapy Charity does. So that's where your money will be going towards today. Okay, so our next speaker has been songwriting and producing since the age of 14 and has toured the UK, US and Europe with his band Broadway's Not Ready, who have recently signed distribution and publishing deals with the US. He also runs Staff Day Studios and Super Demos Mobile Recording in association with Peak Studios, where he's a professional producer. Please give a warm welcome to James Grover.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, yeah, I'm James. I'm from Peak Studios, which is in Bradford. Yeah, basically, I'm here to talk to you about setting up a recording studio and the general running of it. So I'll start off, who's interested in opening their own recording studio in the future, do you think? Yeah, cool. About half here, nice. And the rest, do you think you probably want to work in one at some point? Yeah, sweet. Okay, so yeah, I mean, a lot of this will be relevant to all you. Some of it only to half year, but we'll go for it. Okay, cool. So I've been producing since I was 15. I've been at Peak Studios for about 2 years professionally. And before that, I started as an intern there. Since I've been working there properly, we opened up a second studio, which I'm in charge of. And I'm in charge of like booking all the clients into that and all the advertising and everything really. So I've got some good insight for you on how to go about doing that. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What is a recording studio to you? Like, if you think like it's a studio where people record, yeah, you're right. If you think it's where dreams are made, you're right. But seriously, like physically, a recording studio, it can be anything from like Abbey Road down to just a guy with a laptop who knows what he's doing. Like, if my mum plugged a mic into her laptop, would that be a recording studio? Probably not. But if Timberland plugs a mic into his laptop, you'd probably say yeah. So it can really be anything, any size. It's all about the knowledge behind it, really. It's not just about the bricks and the mortar and the equipment. So yeah, the difference between obviously the big and the small studios is what you're aiming to do with it as a career. I mean, whether your passion really is to record singer-songwriters to sort of break new small artists, help them get good demos and get signed eventually, or whether you want to go out and record symphony orchestras for film scores, obviously you're going to need a different kind of studio to do either one of those. And one of them is going to cost a hell of a lot more. But you'd be aware of that beforehand, I imagine. Okay, so the career path that you choose, you've got to be committed to it before you start, because it's going to be a lot of hard work. And obviously, if you know what you want in advance, you're going to get more success more quickly without wasting a lot of time and money. So I'm going to clarify one thing. If you open a recording studio, you're a businessman more than you're a producer. Otherwise, you're going to struggle, basically. You have to think about business decisions, everything in terms of money. And it's, like I say, it's a lot of hard work. And then, obviously, you can produce too, and hopefully that'll take off for you. But the main goal is to profit every year and hopefully get more and more each year and build up a reputation. Okay, so the main types of studio, like there's a commercial studio, which is what Peak Studios is. So they're open to bookings for clients, the general public, anyone can call up and book in. And then there's like project studios, which are typically like, I don't know, most top producers, I think, run project studios, which they'll have like in an office or a house or whatever. And they're just booking their own people that they want to work with. People can't just ring them up and book in. Obviously, the benefits of the project studios, it's more about convenience than about the profit. The profit from the project studio comes from the songwriting royalties and stuff like that that you'd hopefully want to get as a professional producer. The main focus of my talk will be about commercial studios. Like I say, that's what Peak Studios is. So that's what I'm knowledgeable about. So yeah. Okay. So the alternative, if you don't want any responsibility of setting up a studio, you can always freelance at other studios, which is like, well, I mean, you know what freelancing is, but you can do that, or you can maybe like get a portable recording set up and take it to bands at their rehearsal studios and record. I mean, a lot of my old band, we recorded most of our CDs in our rehearsal room, and they sounded just as good as, well, as a lot of stuff that's done in pro studios costing 10 times the price, basically. Okay, so basically I'm going to go through what you need to do to set up and run a recording studio, and what you should be aiming for in the long run and stuff like that. Okay, so first of all, you want to be obviously planning before you start spending money. So the first thing is market research. You want to find your niche. If you're into, let's say, hip hop, you either want to find a place where there's no studio already doing hip hop, or if you don't know what you want to do, but you live in like a city that already has studios doing rock and metal and stuff, but you notice there's no hip hop studios, then maybe you could start one there. Obviously, if there's things you'd rather do, then just finding a balance between the two would be ideal. So yeah, just if you find that niche, basically is less competition. It's going to be easier to get bookings, easier to find clients, everything. So it just makes your life easier in general, really. Okay, so then you're going to want to figure out what budget you can afford. Obviously, if you've got savings and you want to set it up for those, it's probably going to be smaller than if you're looking at a bank loan, a proper business grant. It all depends on if you can get the loan. Like, you need obviously a business plan and stuff. It's a lot more hard work again, but if that's what you want to do, then it's worth it. Okay, so if you want to work out your budget, basically, you need to know how soon you're going to break even. So say you spend £10,000 setting it up, then you're going to, once you've worked out what you're going to charge for it, then, I don't know, say that's going to take you 2 years to pay off. But if you spend like 1,000 setting it up, then obviously you're going to pay it off like in a tenth of the time, hopefully. Okay, so the size of your studio, that will affect the cost of setting it up, obviously, but it'll also affect what sort of projects you can take. Like, say, if you wanted to record symphony orchestras, you'd need probably a studio at least sort of this room sized, which would be like, I don't know, thousands and thousands, no doubt. But if, like I say, again, hip hop, if you wanted to do that, you could probably do it in a sort of smallish, like, I don't know, 10 foot by 10 foot size room, even that small, like tiny. And there is like, for every big studio in England, there's probably like 10 to 20 small studios like that. So, I mean, that's obviously because of the price thing. Okay, so if you can afford a big studio, then fine. If you've got a smaller studio, or got the budget for a smaller studio, you need to think about like where you're going to put everything. Obviously, if you have limited room, there's things that you really need in a studio other than just the basic recording stuff. Like, you're going to need a toilet for a start. Most people, like, well, not most, some people would forget about that, and then they'd have a nightmare later on when they started taking on clients. Okay, and so probably ideally you want at least a control room and a live room. Some project studios you could get away with just one room where everything's in the same room. But for a serious commercial studio, like I'm talking about the only, like, clients are expecting a live room and a control room setup. If there's anything less, they won't really be impressed with it, and you'll find it hard to get like bigger clients in there. So yeah, so you need like at least 2 rooms. Ideally, you probably want an office as well for general office work. Like I say, it's about a business as well. So you're going to have loads of accounts and stuff, and you don't want to keep them where the clients are really. You're going to keep them in like a storeroom or an office if possible. Okay, so another thing I'll mention about, like, again with the hip hop thing, you probably, if you're doing sort of pop or electronic or anything like that, you're probably not going to need to record drums too often. So it's probably not worth investing in the equipment to record drums if you're not looking to get into mainly drum-based music. Obviously with a drum kit you need like 8, 10, 12 mics, and with most pop you probably just need 1 mic. So yeah, it's best to just keep the cost as low as possible at the start. Okay, so the location, once you've figured out your niche, you want to find the location that suits it the best. Like our studio's in Bradford, so we're based in the centre of Bradford, which is obviously ideal accessibility-wise. We have a car park, so that's obviously handy for clients and for staff. And there's competition in Bradford. There's probably 8 to 10 other studios, but none of those are in the city centre. So we're probably the most accessible out of all those, and because of that, we get a lot of clients coming from Leeds on the train. Whereas the studios that are out in the countryside in Bradford, it's harder to get people to commit to bookings there. So yeah, you want to obviously stay away from the competition as much as possible, at first anyway, until you've got the reputation to outdo them. Also, you're going to want to, if possible, set up a studio with amenities nearby, like shops. If you're doing a 10-hour recording session, at some point, someone's going to want some food. And yeah, I mean, if there's a Tesco right next to you or whatever, like a corner shop, that's good. Like we again, we're in the city centre, so there's loads of cafes and stuff that our clients frequent. Okay, and also music shops. Like ideally, you want to be within sort of at least half an hour of a music shop, because there's going to be times when you need a new set of guitar strings or drumsticks or whatever. You're going to have to get those, and if it takes 3 hours to go buy them, that's 3 hours wasted. Okay, and the premises, once you've found the location, part of this will be the budget. You're going to want to find one with the rent that fits in your budget. Ideally, you need to get one that's secure, because you're going to have thousands of pounds worth of equipment at some point in there. Obviously, like CCTV cameras, stuff like that, that's all going to bring your insurance down and also just give you peace of mind. Yeah, the stability of the lease that you're looking at as well, that's it's quite important. Like if you're going to get the room modified with like sound, what's it called, acoustic design, and then you're going to get kicked out of your lease like 6 months later, then you've just wasted thousands on nothing basically. So you need to, well, obviously get a long lease and make sure it's, like if you're in a building that's just your building, it's a lot more secure than if you're in a block of flats that could get out of flats, offices, where like a big company could move in any time and kick you out. So yeah, and like I said, again, you need a toilet and like ideally a kitchen if that's possible. Okay, so then you're going to want to decide your price to work out your break even, and obviously to work out how much you're going to be making as a career. And you're going to probably want to start off quite cheap and build it up as you grow your reputation. I'd say probably the easiest thing to do is just see what the studios nearest you are charging, and then sort of charge the same sort of price, depending on the relative quality that you're going for as well. If you're going for like super high end and all the studios around are pretty budget, then you could you could charge a bit more, but still probably you can like double the price because you still just probably struggle to get clients. And then obviously if you're going for like lower quality, like just demos or whatever, then you can charge a bit less and just you'll get more people in just by charging less. And then again, you can raise the prices as soon as you can guarantee the work in there. Okay, and it's probably best to have like a pricing strategy that seems fair to to clients. It seems obvious to say it, but the standard thing to do is the first hour will cost more because obviously you have to get to work and set up the building and stuff. So it's a lot more time for you for that first hour. Otherwise, 1 hour bookings you'll just be not making much on them basically. So first hour I'd probably double that. Or like I think at Peak we have a minimum booking of 4 hours, and then we have certain deals for lower than that. But yeah, that's a useful technique to make sure you're not losing money. Also, if bands want to book out longer sessions, you're gonna obviously give them discounts. Like if it's say $250 a day, you could probably do like $1,000 a week. You're still going to be in profit on that because obviously it's guaranteed work for a week rather than loads of small bookings. Okay, so once you've planned it, obviously you can start building it and setting it up. Just basically remember everything can always be cheaper. So with say like the sound desk, not the actual mixer and stuff, but the wood desk that it sits on, you could probably have one custom made for like 500 quid, or you could probably build one out of MDF with like, I don't know, get your dad to help or whatever, just call in favours where you can, and you could probably do it for 70, 80 maybe. So this is all gonna give you extra money in your budget to spend on better gear and stuff like that, or just to make it easier to break even later on. So like, also you're probably gonna need sound panels, like sound insulation, but also like the sound reflection panels and stuff like that. You can basically make those again out of MDF, rock wool, get some fabric on there. Once you're set up and established, you can always upgrade them. But to start off, it's really just best to keep it as cheap as possible. But again, well, not again, as cheap as possible without sort of looking unprofessional. You still want to make them look as good as you can. Just like keep it simple, really. So say you're doing everything, just paint it solid black, and it should look fine, to be honest. Okay, then probably if you can afford to, it's definitely worth to consult with like an acoustic designer to get the room sounding right before you start. They can probably sort of recommend some cheap, or the cheapest, like worthwhile improvements to the room to start with, and then they could give you sort of a plan to upgrade later once you can afford that. And yeah, I mean, obviously if your room's sounding good, you're going to make better recordings in there, and your reputation's just going to benefit from that, of course. Okay. Right. So the first like major thing when you're setting up the studio is to pick the name. It sounds trivial, but it's really not. Like a recording studio is a brand. Again, this is back to the business thing more than the producer thing. It's a brand, so you need something that sounds classy, professional. I'd probably advise having studio or studios in the title, like Peak Studios. That way, when people are Googling it, it's going to come up higher than if you called it like Peak, stores or something. I don't know, you know, something that's not going to come up when people search for it. Okay. Also, it's got to be like original. If you called it sort of Abbey Road 2. You're probably not going to come up in Google very easily. If you call it something that's like not to do with a recording studio, but if you call it like I don't know, like McDonald's recording or whatever. Again, it's going to be hard to get in Google, so it's going to affect your SEO, which is I'll talk about that later. But basically, like how many clients you get from online bookings. Okay, so when you've come up with your name, just basically Google it, see if there's anything out there similar, and if there is, just scrap it and think of another name, basically. Also, don't pigeonhole yourself. Like, I'd probably stay away from names that are sort of genre specific. Even if you wanted to say, start off only recording metal bands, I probably wouldn't call it like Death Studios or something like that, because it's gonna, if you do start expanding and looking for pop acts and stuff, it's gonna hold you back. And then you can either go through the expensive rebranding, or you can just stick with it and stick with that, well, inhibitants, I guess.